just gone. Can you tell me where the love went wrong? Do you remember what it sounds like? We can turn the love back on. We can turn the love back on.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Inkradio podcast again. And we have a little bit of an exception this time around since Nine is actually moving, so he has no internet, so he can't be on the show today. So instead, we brought on two guests, my good friend Hitzel, who we've known forever and actually used to be on the show quite often, and also Walkman, who's on InkTV, and he's been my teammate for a long time. So two guys that me and Kendall both have known for a while, so figure we get them on to chat about a bunch of things happening this week. A lot of hot takes on Twitter today. So let's introduce everyone. So how's it going, Walkman?
Hey, what's up? Yeah, you guys know me, Walkie, and apparently I have so much of an influence in this community that my opinions are fact, even when I say they're not. And also, I'm just wearing a tank top for my brother Nine. You know, he's not here, so I figured someone had to, and I knew it couldn't be Spoon. So,
What, you saying I can't rep a tank top?
I mean,
Don't you see these
introduce
abs?
yourself.
Yeah, I got you next time.
Hey guys, I'm Hitzel. I just finished moving, so I'm Future 9. And this is actually, I was telling them, this is the first time I've used my webcam since I moved into a new place. This is the first public reveal of my living room. But,
I love how you left the little place for the little shield and axe and sword thing.
Dude, this came with the house.
Wait, really?
Yeah, well, it came with the apartment. Yeah, like we went into the shed and we're like, what's in here? They took everything, and then there's just a sword and shield chilling there. I'm like, I'm hanging this in my fucking living room. So there's that.
And Kendall, how's it going with you, man?
Yeah, everything's going good. Been just chilling out for a little bit. Got a new job. Starting up as a personal trainer again. So everything's been all right. And yeah, ready for today. It's been a really interesting day of topics and what everybody's been talking about. I think we should just ban everything, but
We're not going to get into that just yet. That's like our final topic. You know that's going to take a long time.
We don't want to piss everybody off and then make us stick with each other.
why not? That's the whole point. I mean, Walkie already raged the whole community. I mean,
yeah, we've already started. Let's just go downhill from here.
I raised them all for Dapple Doolies, my man.
Like, yo, you ruined Apple Doolies. Don't even play them, please. Like,
So okay.
please do it to GooTuber, please. Like, hurry up.
So, anyways, let's get right into Ink Cage that happened just this past weekend. It was a big online tournament that was for the Platinum Cup Qualifiers, which have a bunch of teams from around the world competing, and it's the one time we usually actually have Japanese teams mixed with American teams, and we don't all hate each other for one day because of lag. So, it's a pretty big event. No prize pool or anything, but it's a good way for a lot of top teams to show their worth against like the supreme Japanese overlords. You know what I'm saying? So let's get into it. What did everyone think of Ink Cage? Not the technical side of things, just the actual matches and the teams that came out of it.
All right. I guess I could start. Did all of you guys plan it?
I did. I subbed for Olive day one.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Yeah, I remember that happened. So we had a lot of fun day one. We had less fun day two because we couldn't have everybody, and we had to do a bunch of subs, and it wasn't as fun. But I had a lot of fun in the tournament simply because we didn't get put in the floating pools, so we got to play like all the matches. Well, except for like Division 3, we got to play a bunch of matches day one that ended up being really fun, and there were some decent teams in our pool, and in the pool after that. And we had basically almost all our matches were 3-0s or 3-1s, but they were like really close 3-0s and 3-1s. So that was like kind of fun. I always like a tournament that it feels close, but then if you look at the numbers afterwards, you're like, yeah, we did awesome. We never panicked once.
Were you playing with Clockwork?
Yeah, we were playing with Clockwork.
Okay.
The first day it was Perps FLC, Soldier, and I, and that squad did really well. And then for day two, we had to sub in for Soldier and for for a little bit we had to sub in Opie, and then when Soldier got back, like Astral had to leave. So it was a little bit messy on day 2. We kind of like kept changing the roster every match, etc. But the matches that we actually like had our team there went really well, and they were really fun. So it kind of felt nice because our team was kind of like MIA over the winter, and we just kind of like got back lately, and we've been like practicing and scrimming, and we have like a little scrim group that we're working on and stuff, and it kind of paid off. So.
All right, and I guess more to the point, how do you guys feel about the European domination that happened at InkCage this past week, showing up North American teams who were originally doing well at the beginning of Splatoon season?
Can I continue on Hitzel first, and then go to that?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Talk about your player experience.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Walkman, it doesn't matter what your opinion is.
No. Apparently, I need to have a disclaimer every time. What are my facts about the tournament? I played games. They happened. People won. People lost. All right, no, but seriously, I was a big fan of the floated pools because that's where I was with Olive. So I got into the floated pools, right? And that's like basically where they put the top. I don't know what it was, 12 teams or something like that.
So wait, actually, can you guys kind of explain how this tournament format works for everyone?
Yeah,
explain this tournament format, because I wasn't too well versed in it, so when I got into watching it on stream, I just was like, okay, it doesn't matter what the pools look like, I'm just going to watch games, and they're probably going to be good, and then I'll just kind of figure out who did well at the end, because I had no idea what was happening.
Alright, so basically what it was they had like 2 separate, like, kind of, I guess, pools, but like brackets. Like there was a pool of 2 groups that were called the floated pools, whatever, and then that was the top, I think, 12 seeded teams. So 2 groups of 6 or something like that. And then there was whatever, I don't know what that pool was called.
They were just called placement pools.
Placement pools, yeah. So yeah, the placement pools was just everybody else that didn't make it into that top 12. We're in groups of, I don't know, it was a lot of groups.
Seeding. It was seeded into.
It was seeded for sure. And then, so I was placed with Olive because it's Olive in the top groups, and we got to play against in the group stage, Creamfesh, Extermination, Tomo, Saikai, and El Firmament. And for a group stage, that was so fun to be able to play all those teams. Like, usually when you play groups, like, if you're a top team or something like that, you're kind of bored. So I really enjoyed that. Obviously, I didn't do too well with Olive. We went, I think, 2 and 3 or something. But that was enough to get us into Division 1, which was honestly the goal, because we had 2 subs. It was me and Alex, who just got the what do you call it? He just got a Switch for Christmas. So he used to play for New Civilization in Splatoon 1, if people remember that team. So yeah, it was 2 of us sub for Olive. And then we had an amazing time just with that group, because it was fun to play a bunch of teams. It was kind of like scrimming just a bunch of good teams over and over till that was done. But then you also wanted to talk about the EU dominance or whatever.
Should I real quick maybe give an explanation of how the brackets work, just for those who didn't?
I mean, sure.
Yeah. All right. So you know how like usually what happens in tournaments that are the bigger ones, they kind of do like those bronze, silver, gold brackets or whatever, where they'll you do pools and then some teams will go.
I mean, you don't need confirmation from me, Hitzel.
Right. Oh yeah. I'm talking to the team. Yeah. Right. So basically that happened, but similar to G5, once you got placed in your lower bracket, if you got high enough in that bracket, you would get placed in the one above you. So in theory, somebody could just completely bust her and go all the way to the bottom, and then keep winning and get all the way back in the top 8, and in theory win the tournament. I don't think that happened. I think some team went from like the very bottom and got like in the top bracket and lost, but technically that could happen. And then on top of that, they also, like Walkie was saying, they split the pools into seeding groups, where the top seeded pools would generally place higher into the after brackets than the lower seeded pools, and then once everybody was kind of like match made based on their placements, then it all kind of like went through that like multiple bracket placement to the top. So I think it's pretty fun.
Yeah, it was fun. Obviously, for later we might get into like the problems of that format, but it was really fun. So then I guess the teams that made it top 12 or whatever, which honestly really surprised me. It did and it didn't, because first of all, I don't know how Quantum wasn't placed in the floated pools with us for some reason. They were definitely better than a lot of the teams in the floated pools, but just in general, there was the fully torqued that made it into the top 12, which is of Kendall knows Higgy from Long Island Splat's team.
Wait. So, is he playing?
Higgy played day 1, so he technically made it into top 12. He didn't play day 2,
So he made it really a god.
Yeah.
He is apparently a god.
Gosh. Wow.
Nah, but he says 2 of his teammates really carried them into the top 12 or something. They beat Deep Blues and I believe Monarchy to get into the top 12.
You better be calling out Sammy there, Kendall.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, Higgy's gonna let them know. Don't worry.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he let Prodigy know.
Yeah. So that was kind of surprising that this little 13-year-old kid that we met at Long Island Splat just somehow.
Wow. I didn't realize we were talking.
Yo, that's honestly, it's crazy.
Yeah. Kendall, were you able to watch any of it in Cage or find out what happened?
I paid attention to mostly like Monarchy's point of view. I was like watching them as they go along throughout the day. Also, just paying attention to like I mostly started watching at top 12. It looked like there was a lot going on, so I didn't understand what was happening exactly with like how the brackets worked. It was more interesting watching how everything transpired, even just going into the tournament, watching like Kraken Paradise come back from like those crazy sets. But just obviously the whole talk was with Monarchy's point of view was how long the tournament went on for. So that's one of the things that like a lot of people were getting into. So it looked like it was interesting. It looked like it gave the opportunity that teams needed to get into the, I guess, top 12 with, I guess, teams like fully torqued, whatever it is.
Fully twerked.
They missed out on a good opportunity. Like in all honesty, they missed out on a good opportunity. But
Fully torqued.
But as I said, like I caught some of Olive's sets in the beginning. So like as Walkie said, it did show like a lot of like, I guess, the teams that you never usually, I don't say like never got to see, but never usually get to see I guess play against each other until like top 12 play in the beginning.
Like, I'm sure if it was like just a double elimination or a single elimination, double elimination, something like that, fully torqued would have got 3-0'd by Olive first round, something like that, because of seeding. And then, but somehow this tournament made it happen. It probably wouldn't have happened in any other format, to be honest.
You like blow the horn and all the top teams just start botting each other right away. Like.
So yeah, I guess.
And then now the EU dominance or whatever.
Well, I guess it's two things actually.
Yeah.
It's EU, like EU took basically all the top placements, and the second one is there was a lot of new teams that came out of like the woodwork in this tournament that did really well.
Like
Fully torqued is one of them.
Yeah, but we mentioned that you're saying a lot of teams.
Okay,
I want more than one.
Hold on. Start talking. I'm bringing out K-Bot's Twitter because he has a list of all these team names.
The EU dominance, I'm not surprised in the slightest.
Yeah, I'm kind of not either.
Because
it's been dominant for how long?
Yeah, Squidboard's top 4 was the same exact top 4 as this, except you replace El Firmament with, I believe, In Control Sorrow. It's the same exact one. So it's still Kraken Paradise, Ethereal, and Olive. They're top. They're in the top every single time, and I mean, I'm not surprised because I'm in the discords with these players, and they're the ones scrimming all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I guess he's more getting at probably like none of the teams doing that well besides like Saikai and like Tomo.
Yeah, Saikai and Tomo are the best NA teams outside of Set to Destroy X, but they don't play these tournaments, so those are the they're the not really, but Saikai and Tomo are the only ones I would ever out of NA to even like have a chance of winning a tournament like this.
I mean, I don't know if I guess I could agree with that. I think like the European top is doing really, really good right now. And like you said, Set to Destroy X just doesn't play in a lot of tournaments. I feel like it would be a whole different story. You wouldn't hear about EU dominance if STDX actually entered these tournaments.
Just because they alone could it could get people's like perception to think that NA was good just by simply having the one American team go in and crash everything.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
it's like NA's last hope. You know what I'm saying?
how many NA teams even made it into the top 12?
It was a decent amount. I think it was like 5, maybe. It was pretty close.
Like if you're
It was out of 12. It was like 5.
If you're going to like top 16 teams, it is a fairly even distribution between like EU and NA, but as you get closer to the top, yeah, exactly. Yeah. The distribution of like a wealth, I like to call it, is like all the top is like all EU, and then you start getting to the NA and you're the bottom.
The problem with that also is like, even if like the number 5th team or something like that is an American or something, there's still a huge gap between those top 4 and the rest. Like there's a huge gap. Like if you look at those things, it's like Quantum throughout placement pools and everything, they 3-0'd like everybody. Then they go to the top 12 and they got 3-0'd themselves. Twice.
They got 3-0'd by Olive, and then who'd they get 3-0'd by after that? Kraken Paradise, so that's painful.
Yeah.
It's like a huge difference. And Quantum is a great team.
Yeah.
But there's just a huge skill gap there.
What exactly was the roster for Quantum? Because I
know Ryan played for them like as a sub, I think. Like Ryanator.
Yeah.
And he's a good player, but still.
Key, Jack.
I was going to say which.
Ryanator, Sky. Okay, so these are some of the good guys. Like I know that Ross wasn't playing for him because Quantum's one of those teams where it's like there's like 3 or 4 different teams that kind of like overlap members. So like when you see them sign up for a tournament, you need to see the roster to actually understand who's playing.
Yeah, and that
might have been why they got put lower in the seeding. Maybe the whoever's doing the seeding looked at the rosters and said, "Oh, all their good members are playing for other teams. Let's just look over them or whatever," which was a bad idea.
Yeah, but yeah, overall, I think like you said, I think we all expected it, but I think it's still surprising to note that a lot of them are EU, and it's like maybe, like you said, it's probably that they're just scrimming together more.
It is.
Do you think that US just needs to scrim more? Do you think there needs to be something more catered to NA?
The amount of times, alright, think of like 2 good NA teams, right? Saikai and like Eclipse / Neptune kind of, right?
Yeah.
The amount of times I see these 2 teams looking for scrims for hours at NA peak time. I see Diego on Twitter of Neptune is like, please scrim me. We need something. They're in their stream for an hour waiting for somebody to scrim them, and there's nobody. There is literally nobody
all the time.
Well, okay. What I'm wondering is then like, but even still,
and then people complain sometimes that like they won't scrim lower teams. It's like they're that desperate that they will. There just isn't anybody.
Well, my question is even still, like even for a team like Saikai, obviously as I said, there's a gap between like say like Saikai and then everybody else, but then you look at Saikai and then there's still a gap between them and like that you would call them your top 4 or whatever from the EU or whatever it is. Like it's like to the point where like sometimes they'll go against those teams and like no matter what, even if they get to a game 5, it's like say if it's going against like I guess like Ethereal when it actually matters is what I'm saying. It's like they get to a game 5 or even if they get to like I guess game 7 or sometimes just get stomped out. Like they'll look like a strong team sometimes, and then sometimes the gap against like maybe like an Olive, I said Ethereal, or even
That's another thing. Hits will go because I've been talking a while.
For Saikai in particular, I don't know if that's as much of a gap as it is just their play style is just kind of like gas pedal until it works.
Well, I was talking about Saikai Tomo. That's where I'm. That's
yeah. I was talking about Saikai. Tomo's not.
You know what I'm saying?
Tomo's not quite like that, and I think Tomo's basically like been on the rise for a little bit now. Because if you look back to, if you kind of like take a look at the bigger picture, like Splat 1 as well, like Tomo wasn't really that caliber of team for a while. They were kind of like the caliber underneath that, and before that they were HM. But like I think that like Tomo's been slowly improving, and I think that like it might be a gap with them, but they're still heading in the right direction. As far as Saikai, I feel like they just kind of like either it's just the way that they play. Like they just kind of like are always just all in all the time, and when it works, they just trash you, and if it doesn't work, they just lose. So that's why with like Saikai, sometimes they'll fight like a top EU team.
I mean, my question is though, but like if you would look at it, you would say SCDX obviously is being like NA's best team.
Yeah.
But after that, wouldn't you say Tomo?
I'd say Saikai.
I'd say Saikai still.
Saikai.
Yeah.
I think
Saikai,
just
yeah.
consistent. They're just more consistent at the
Consistent
moment.
over being consistent. That's what you're gonna say.
Yeah.
Right now,
I think if you
just
put it to like a best of 100, Saikai would come out on top.
Yeah,
And they didn't play once in this tournament, right?
No, I don't believe they did. No, they did. They did in groups. We were all in the same group.
Wait, Saikai.
And Saikai came out 5-0 in our group, or something like that, because they beat us 2-3.
Saikai fought Tomo in bracket, and Tomo actually 3-1 Saikai.
No, well, I mean it's a very close battle between the two.
Okay,
but
fine. You're gonna put like Tomo Saikai.
the thing with the only reason I would put Tomo second is because they've never really won anything decent. Saikai has, at least.
They always get close, and then Saikai can. Well, that's the thing with
Saikai at least has won before.
They both consistently get to about the same spot, but Saikai has those moments where they just go all the way for like seemingly no reason. So like I actually think Saikai is a little bit less consistent. It's just that like their inconsistency kind of hovers around a spot that's a little bit higher than Tomo's, at least for now.
Yeah.
We'll see. Everybody makes fun of Tomo for having like prestige, whatever. But over time, all that playing is what's going to make him good.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. I guess we'll wrap that up because we have a lot to go through. The next one is more just as like a final wrap up, though. I understand like the matches were hot and it was cool to see all these top teams play against each other. But there was a lot of problems with the tournament. I don't know, Hitzel, if you want to kind of wrap it off because you have kind of an insight as to what's going on.
I can make it quick so we can get to some of the other topics. But basically, what started the fire was there was I think it was almost a record amount, or it was a record amount of teams that just dropped last second, like during check-in, to the point where they had to redo the brackets. Originally, there were 3 top brackets, and I didn't even know how many not floated brackets underneath that. And because of how the teams dropped out, they had to redo everything. And that ended up causing more problems because, I don't know, I'm sure that, well, I know you guys know, I don't know if the audience knows, but one of the weaknesses of Smash GG is it's kind of hard to set up tournaments. Once you get them running, they're great, but setting it up is a little bit difficult. And when they had to redo everything, they basically had to set up a tournament in like 20 minutes, and times got set wrong, a lot of stuff got configured poorly, so basically staff was trying to put those fires out the whole time. Meanwhile, there were problems with the stream that also were happening at the same time, and the stream was happening at Irex's house, and he was also the one that had to be on the bracket, so the stream got delayed. They didn't have enough casters. Some people like me that came in as like backups, we were having trouble getting the feed, so I couldn't cast because I was getting like these 10-second like pauses where I wouldn't get any video feed, and it basically a lot of problems just kind of like cascaded from the initial problems with the brackets, where things were taking too long, teams were like getting randomly disqualified because the time settings were wrong, and TOs had to come in and fix stuff. And then there was a little bit of a problem with the way the waterfall bracket worked, where we did pools day 1, then we did division 3, which was the lowest one, then we did 2. Day 2 comes around, we do division 1 and top bracket. Now on paper that sounds good, right? Because you do pools and then you do the lower divisions right away and you get rid of all the lower level teams. That way for day 2 you just have all the high level stuff left. And that's kind of the way tournaments usually go. But the problem with this is because the divisions have to wait for each other to finish before you can continue. Day 1, what happened is pools ended and all the lower level teams went to division 3, which took longer than it was supposed to, and everybody had to sit there for 2 hours and do nothing to play their division 2 matches to wait for division 3. And that, I mean, I know that we all know that having a lot of delays in tournaments sucks. Having a 2-hour delay on top of the other delays is really bad. So it was kind of just a disaster as far as the brackets and the stream and the presentation went. So it was kind of unfortunate because it was a really fun tournament and it was a really cool format. But because it went so poorly, I don't think that they're going to try this format in online tournaments in the future. Probably it lands because it worked at G5, but I don't think that we'll see it. At least not anytime soon from an endgame tournament, because I think they're worried about like kind of public image.
Yeah, so, well, that's what I was gonna say.
That's a big deal to me right now with them.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna say because we do streaming, right? Like we understand the pain of that, and like while I do feel bad for the whole event, it just comes down to you got to prepare for it. We've taken the bullet for things like this too. Like that's why I feel for it. You know what I mean? Like, I understand we've had like some lag issues sometimes. We've had some commentator delay issues, and we always hear about them, and we always get criticized if one thing's wrong, right? So I totally understand that. But like, the thing that you just have to take out of it is do better, man. Like, that's it. You fucked up. They admitted that it fucking blew up in their face a little bit, and the whole thing is to, I guess, like, I know my boy Eirik. I know he's gonna take it and work on it. You know what I mean? So I think the whole point is just take it and internalize it, and just make it better for next time, and just preparation is what I always say. From the first time we ran streams when we had issues, every time we're now becoming more and more prepared for anything that can go wrong, to have a backup or something that we know of in the future. So yeah, that's really good to know.
I guess for me, it's just in terms of public image, it's like, now to me, I know it's probably not anyone's like direct fault, but there's like, to me, endgame stream is a meme where it's going to start an hour late at least. And that's happened like 3 of their streams in a row, and they're just too good for that to be happening consistently. Like, honestly, I respect all of them. Friends with Eirik and Hitzel from Long Island Splat, whatever. We hit it off there all the time, but they just have to do better on that regard. To me, is like, I think it was like 2.5 hours ish late or so, and that's just too much. Especially when you tweeted out before that it was going to happen. Yeah. And then reassured people in help desk that it was going to happen. That's just too much. Other than that, just Waterfall had too many problems that obviously you said they weren't prepared for. Like, even I think in Division 1 pools, they had to change it where top 2 teams went out. I think that was something they had to do on the fly, Hitzel. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it was top 1 before.
Sure,
and, right, yeah, so, because something with the way I saw it ended up happening that I'm actually like kind of like livid or furious about is like in Division 1 pools, apparently there were 5 groups. Top 2 make it out, but from 2 of the groups, only 1 team could make it out.
Yeah.
Because I think it was something that had to happen on the fly, because nobody would plan for something stupid like that. I think
it was something that had to happen on the fly, because they had to change, because of all the drops, they had to like kind of like change the numbers real quick, and I guess they didn't think that through very well, or
yeah, because that's just because I looked at it, and Conton X didn't make Division 1. I mean, they didn't make the floated pools because honestly, I think their pool was just harder and they lost more games. But they had the same record as everybody else.
Yeah, I was in their pool, and it was like there was a lot of 3-way ties going on, and in that pool where like this team beat that team, that it was a little rough. Yeah,
so if just obviously there were way too many problems for that format to just work online or something, so they got to change that. But yeah,
so I guess overall we feel the same way. I guess we're getting to the point where now we feel like we need to expect more from this, especially time delays. Like, I think time delays is huge. I'd argue that EGTV is kind of they're on the spotlight right now. Like, not even us are on the spotlight. You know what I mean? Like, they're the ones who are hosting the LANs right now, all this. So being late is like really not an acceptable thing anymore. It's really bad. So yeah, I would say that's like the #1 thing that needs to be worked on. Preparation. That's it, man. Just prepare. Anyways, going on to that, because it brought up a topic with us here when we were talking about these things, is actually a bunch of people had some discussions regarding tournament time and spectator mode. So these have been hot topics, not specifically the tournament time, but it is a topic that's been discussed throughout the ages of Splatoon 1 and Splatoon 2, so we'll get into that. But also, this was brought up on Twitter that people are now starting to become more critical of spectators in Splatoon and what they expect of them and what we should be doing as spectators and how to improve it. So I kind of want to start with that, like the spectator mode, and then go kind of into like tournament time and if you think it's acceptable or not acceptable for the time being. In cage aside, I'm talking about like regular tournaments. So yeah, what do you guys think of spectator mode? Is there anything that people are not doing properly? What do you think can be worked on? Who do you think at the moment is doing a really good job with it?
I have an opinion on kind of some of the camera work that I don't think that sometimes the spectators don't do quite well, and it's understandable because there's an issue with Splatoon spectator mode that if you're using the fly around camera and you're doing whatever with it, you're moving it, you have it somewhere, and then you snap the camera to a player, and that player starts moving around. If you try to go back to that flyover camera, it's not gonna go. The camera isn't just gonna go up in the air over the player that you just left and kind of like continue with that context. The camera's gonna snap back over to where you left it before, and that means that. And flyover camera is a good thing, and it's a really good thing for spectators, especially ones that aren't that familiar with Splatoon, because one of the strengths of Splatoon is the paint on the ground helps people visually see where control is and what's happening just by looking at the map. And in addition to that, even another shooter having that top-down kind of view helps a lot. That's one of the reasons I think that Overwatch, the Overwatch League isn't getting as many views as a lot of people thought it would, because it's really hard to follow.
What? It has like 145,000 views a day, man.
It has been dropping like every week,
but that's normal with anything, man. You're talking about a huge league that started and there's a drop-off after 2 weeks of playing?
No, I think it's more of just some of those games in that league are like very one-sided. That's probably why they're losing. When it's the good matches,
I'll take back the Overwatch thing. But either way, I think that more spectators need to use that flyover camera. The problem is because it has that weird snapping thing where it takes the camera where you don't want it to be. A lot of spectators, once they're into the action, they'll kind of stop using it, and they'll do that thing where if somebody gets a kill, they'll just take the spectator cam and go to the person that got that kill, and they'll jump back and forth. And what that creates is like, it doesn't seem like it when you're the spectator, or sometimes when you're like a competitive player like us, it's not that jarring because you kind of can tell what's going on. But for a more casual observer, it really takes away a lot of like intuitive context from the game. And I think that's something that a lot of these guys that do the camera work have to do, is they have to really get on top of managing that flyover cam. And basically, like, there's two things that you can do. The first thing that you can do is when you are moving the flyover camera, try to have your camera somewhat pointed to the middle of the map and kind of have like an arc on one side where you take that camera. And what that does is it makes it so that when you have to snap back to that camera, because you're kind of looking towards the map as a whole, the chances of that camera not looking at what you were just looking at are a lot less. And if you can keep that in mind and kind of like keep an easy track of where you left the camera, you can do a lot better job of going back and forth between the flyover cam and your players. So that can make managing it more easily. The second thing that I think spectators need to do when they're working the camera is, instead of doing that thing where they jump to the person in the death cam, when someone gets a kill, just move the camera up in the air, kind of move it to where you want it to be, and then decide who you're going to jump into next. And even if it's only for a few seconds, you don't want to like have the camera flying back and forth to the point where people are kind of getting, disoriented. You don't want to do that. But even if it's only for like, 5 seconds, and then you kind of go to somebody else, you're going to give people that are watching an intuitive like context for what's going on, to the point where it's going to be much easier to watch, and people are going to understand more like what's the state of the game, who's winning, is this a push happening right now, like how many people are alive. You're going to give your spectators a lot better understanding of all that stuff just by being a little bit more gentle with by using the flyover cam instead of snapping back and forth and just trying to keep that context. And I think that a lot of the people that use the spectator cam, even though they do use the flyover cam or they'll use like the objective cam and stuff, overall I don't think they're doing a good enough job of kind of like naturally going between those kinds of perspectives in a way that makes it easy to watch. I
would also say that it's not just that. I think to go a little bit more in depth on it, there's a couple of things that I see. So one thing I want to point out is that people need to shut up, dude. I'm sorry, I always say this. Like, I feel like I'm always calling out people, but like, people just need to shut up, because like, you can't win, right? Like, we've done the broadcasting, and Blake's style is more of he very much focuses on players and switches between players and does the overhead every once in a while, right? It's to some people's liking. Some people really like that fact. Some people fucking hate it, you know? And it's like, we can't win, right? Like, even if we do an even ground, people still complain about something, right? Like,
well, and if you don't, then people complain, like, why are you following these star players?
And then, like, for
of,
example, you watch some things from EGTV, and depending on who was there, people are like, this was the best, they're using overhead so much, and other people are like, why are they doing only overhead? And it's like, like, what do you want from people, man? Like, there has to be an even ground, and you can't listen. What I've learned is you can't really listen to a lot of feedback that you just see on the fly, because there's just too many people who have too many different opinions on what they feel is good. Me personally, just as a player who's watched, who's played competitive, who understands the game at some fundamental level a little bit more than like newcomers, I guess you could say. And just from us being in Splatoon 1, you know what I mean? Like, we've watched like literally one player perspective for the entire time in Splatoon 1. So we've kind of learned to look at the map from all corners, right? Like, we can look at one player and know everything that's going on in a game practically, because that's how we've trained ourselves to do it from Splatoon 1, right? So for me to go from an overhead view or a single view is kind of like, I understand what's happening in the context of the match. So we're not really catering it to us. We're catering it to like newcomers, right? And I think it's great. The individual view gives like nice pop-ups and shows like the really cool plays. Like, it makes people into like, it makes people popular, it makes them more well known, and that's kind of a factor to broadcasting, right? Is like, you want the players to have some shine, you know? And then the outsider view kind of gives a perspective of the entire game as a whole, the turf that's covered, and just how the team plays in terms of strategy, right? So you have to find that balance between the two. And me personally, what I found is individual players is really good. You want to focus on the players as much as you can, but every once in a while you want to pop out to kind of recalibrate the viewer as to what's happening in the game, because you don't want to get too focused on the players, because then it becomes something like, oh my god, like, what is happening? I'm just watching this one guy tearing things, but why is something not moving, right?
But
like,
why isn't he winning?
Yeah, you need like the objective perspective. So like, going on the player, watching him pop off is exciting, and then you need to recalibrate for a couple of seconds, show people kind of what's happening in the match, and then go to another player. And I think a second thing that's going to come in further on, like when we really get into the game, is I think there has to be, it sounds stupid, but broadcasters have a really important role to present kind of a storyline. They're the ones who can do it. I actually read an article a couple of days ago about broadcasters in like CSGO and stuff, and they were talking about like how sometimes they just don't show like a specific thing that's happening, even though it's vital, because they're trying to present a narrative to the player that makes it easier to understand, right? So like, if you bring up, this involves casters and broadcasters, right? So let's say they're talking about like X player doing really well and trying to show his strategy and showing like the flanks that they're creating, like talking about a strategy. You want that narration to kind of come to life in a way. So if they're presenting a strategy and it fails, you want to show off that strategy, so you're going to focus on that highlight of that player. And I think that's what it's going to start coming down to, is where you start working together with the broadcaster and the commentators to try and create a proper storyline throughout the event, to try and create this narrative of people so that they can coherently follow the game better.
Walkie, I think Prodigy was saying something about, he was doing some camera work one of the times you and Fuzzy were commentating at an LAS. And he would try to keep moving the camera where he thought was a good idea and be like, no, Prodigy, go back. I want to see more of that.
All right. Well, I mean, Kendall, do you want to go first before I go?
Nah, you got it, man. Go ahead. I'll go.
All right. So, So today, my opinion on this kind of changed, because I don't know if you caught it, but Fuzzy was streaming a big scrim between Ethereal and Olive, and he was a spectator. So that whole scrim, he only used the overhead camera, the whole scrim, because he doesn't want to like look at. He says he's not qualified to be a commentator, so he's just gonna tell everybody what's going on. So basically, I think from that, I really enjoyed when, I guess, an analytical person who's smart about the game can tell me what's going on in that view. And a lot of casters, to be honest, probably can't handle that. Like, commentators, they probably can't handle that view, the overhead view, as well as they can that single player view. because it's way easier to be a hype man or something like that for the single man than it is to be looking at it from above. Even though like it may look better for the audience, like they can see like there's more purple than green on the field, and they might know what's going on. It's just we need casters that are also good at talking in that mode when it's like that. So I want to see more of like a balance between the two, because as you said, there should be like I work with Blake obviously, and I know he does more of the player stuff, but maybe from him is like when I see like the game goes back to like a complete neutral situation, why am I looking at one player? Maybe I should look at the whole scenario in that case.
Yeah,
like when both teams are reapproaching the middle or something like that, then maybe see that. Or maybe when there's a bunch of players around the objective, let me see the whole thing.
Yeah,
things like that.
I mean, that will come with time, and I think that also depends on the players too. I will say that I think more competitive players or people who have that insight of analysis are probably better at reading where the action's going to be, like predictive, right? Like you think this player is going to be the one to make this play at this time, and I do agree with you. I think like from when I casted BNS and other tournaments in Splatoon 1 and whatnot, at the time when I did commentary, it suited if we had an overhead view, because I would always present what the team's ideas were to be or how they would be executed, and I think that overhead view kind of makes it the way it is. And I think the ultimate future of this is actually to have two spectators at the same time, synchronized perfectly. We've tried to do it, we just can't right now.
Yeah.
But that's why we do mini-map. So that way you get a view of kind of what's happening, but it's really small. But the future idea is to have like two spectators in sync, kind of going through overhead and player's perspective and switching between each player to kind of show off like each team at the same time.
Like somebody like kind of like a dashboard is choosing which perspective to show the casters, is what you're saying?
Kind of. Well, no, the casters could see both at the same time.
Ah, okay.
But not only that, like we could meld that into a stream where you could, let's say, do like a split screen of like each player hovering over like purple and green, let's say, and then you would show them like facing off at the beginning of a match, and then it'd go into a full view, and then you know what I mean, like kind of mixing it up where you have two broadcasters and you can kind of go on the fly. I think that's that'll be like the future. I don't think that would work right now, and I think it takes a lot of coordination, but I think we can get to that point, and it's more I'm hopeful than it will happen.
I feel like that's a little bit too 20XX, but I do think that like I seriously do think that the camera work for being a spectator in these tournaments is actually like, it takes a lot of skill, and people have to like learn. Like there's like a meta for camera work.
Well, and it's just smoothness too. Like smoothness is a huge factor to it. Like the one thing I will say, I think Blake does well. Like and Walkman, I'm not.
He doesn't
I'm not
give
the
you
only
motion sickness.
No, I love Blake, man.
No, to be fair, like we're all cool, but
his work.
But we're all honest though. Like we're all honest when we talk about it. I've told Blake many times that there's things I don't like about what he does, but it's like we're all cool with it. We're willing to talk about it, right? And what I'm trying to say is like one thing that Blake does extremely well is okay, Walkman.
Blake, did you see Blake's comment at InkTV?
No. Anyways, I'll get to it, but
Come on.
anyways, I think what's really good is he's really good at smoothing it out, Hitzel. You're right. He doesn't cause motion sickness. He really makes the map feel like it's flowing. He really makes you feel like the game's flowing and nothing's like jarring, and the motion camera isn't shaking when you're doing it and stuff. Yeah. Like it's very smooth. Everything feels very smooth, and I think that's a huge step into it. And I think the next part is getting like the he does have a good game sense for a lot of things, but I think the overhead needs to be like something a little bit more prevalent sometimes. But yeah, other than that, like I said, it depends on the style, it depends on who's playing what, but I think that's what we should start expecting from people. Kendall, you haven't been talking too much on this.
Thank you.
Hit me up with your thoughts.
Big mouth. That's why I'm so good.
Should have never invited both of them on at the same time.
No, I was gonna say, honestly, I hate overhead. I'm gonna go for more like the play by play. Like, yo, in all honesty, like I go to Hitzel's like stream and he's on overhead, I leave.
But to be fair, Hitzel's overhead is just like
hold on. Only reason I understand it from looking at the X's and O's and looking at like where you paint on the map, it's cool. I can tell you that like, yo, perps You're all the way over here. There's no ink around you. What are you doing? Astral, like, yo, you went into a 3v1. What are you doing? I understand it from like the analytical side. So like when somebody's able to speak, they're able to get it done. They're able to talk about it. But from the like somebody that's watching that doesn't understand the game, like I was watching it with somebody and they were like, yo, why are they always in overhead? I don't even understand what's going on. Half of the people that are in NA, first off, don't know how to paint the map. So I like for somebody like Hitzel, it's
half?
Great. More than half. Let's go with like 95. But and I understand that you don't miss plays, but like say for instance, by the way, we also missed this. My personal favorite, I like Czar. I think Czar does actually a really good job, especially during like
But he
SS.
pops down into overhead a lot, though.
He does. No. I'm not saying that there doesn't need to be a balance. But on top of that, you wouldn't have moment. I think that we're missing out on the moments that happen. Say for instance, like where you look at, I don't even have we called it something yet? Where between your Hitzel's team and DJ's team at
No
SS.
Fear versus.
No, you got to give it a name. Like
The game.
But people wrote articles on this, man. Like it's one of the crazy. It's honestly one of the craziest moments. It might obviously people might be like, oh, it's terrible play, but it's crazy. Like
the
people
friendship
like
demolition. I don't know.
Basically.
Friendship demolition. We
You know, I call that the worst game in Splatoon in history, right?
I know.
That's what I call it.
Okay, so we'll call it the worst game in Splatoon history.
and honestly, it honestly should be. But I mean, and I understand like why.
Well, it was really dramatic.
I think the Spectator is what made that look like a really good game.
Great thing, but also it's the first year. Not even. We've just gotten into like talking about Spectator. We're gonna get more people that are gonna get like looking into it, actually like understanding how it works, how it gets done. Yeah, we came from watching one player single hand and actually like telling you like, yo, you were off on your own. Why weren't you here like helping me out? We're gonna get there, but I think it does need to be a balance. But I'm coming more from like this perspective of I want to see the action. I can understand it, and if I'm sitting next to somebody, it's cool to tell them like you'll have Hitzel on stream saying like, yo, this is what's happening, this is what's going on, but it's boring.
All right,
For an
but
extended period of time.
sometimes you gotta have that 5-10 seconds of boring so that people actually know what's going on in the game.
Yeah, but he never said
Like-
that you should.
No, but I'm saying, alright, yeah, but the thing with the overhead view to me is just why it's so boring is because we have those casters that want to give those play-by-plays, and that's not what you do in that mode.
The thing is, you're thinking it from a perspective, and I understand what you're saying, but you're thinking from a perspective of where you, Walkie, when I see that perspective of what happens, I understand where this team went wrong and why they went wrong and what happened at that moment in time. When I look on the map, I understand that because I play the game and I can look at it and be like, that's what went wrong. But when somebody sees that, like, yo, that person went left and they're a spectator, they're just like, all right, this is kind of cool. Hitzel's explaining it, great, but they would probably rather see a good combination of it being explained, but at the same time, they're always going to want to see like the player going on.
I think
Yeah, and then you transition into that. It's like, all right, Hitzel calls out, oh, on the bottom of our screen, Sendo is going in for the flank, he's doing this, that. Then the spectator who presses the button on Sendo goes into that, and we keep going from there.
I think what everyone's just trying to get at is the synergy between casters and players needs to work, because right now what's happening is overhead's controlling the entire game and the casters just listen over to it, right? What we're going to have to start hearing is the caster is going to talk about a play and he'll be in overhead and say something like Nine's going, and what Walkman's saying is the broadcaster will then listen to the commentator's prediction and pop it off. And then that creates that storyline aspect that I was talking about, where you're synergizing perfectly with both and you're creating this narrative within the game that's paying off. It's a long way to go, but it's
a very long way to go.
It'd be dope if we can get to that point. And I think this is very in depth. Like most people don't worry about this stuff, but this is totally what we think about. So, it's cool.
Let's go to the next topic. We've been on this a while.
Yeah, listen, I love this stuff. Okay, broadcasting is what we do, man. So, the next thing is tournament time. Kendall brought this up to me, so I'll hit you off with this. He was talking about how I think you were saying that tournaments take too long for you.
Yeah. I mean, you look at it like a situation. I haven't been in a tournament. Like, I kind of wish that there was like a timeline of said, like, obviously you can't, within Cage, there's a problem with The fact that you can't, when problems happen, you have a 2-hour delay. Fine, I understand that. But I kind of wish that it was like, hey, this tournament started at 12. Understand that you're going to be in this for the rest of like 6 hours of your day, and whatever it is, time done, 8 o'clock, 5 o'clock, it's fine. But like when you have delays, it's like look at a team like Monarchy. They had to lose B because B had to get something done. And I understand, like, say for when you brought up like BNS, and it's like, all right, we're going to be ending late. I already have that time slotted because of the fact that I understand that if I'm playing in BNS and I make it out of groups or whatever you guys are planning to do, I understand that, like, yo, I'm going to be up until 1 o'clock EST, whatever. That's fine. But it's when you get into like those Saturday tournaments and you've been playing from like 12 till like even like 5, and you're just getting out of groups, and then now you're going into like whatever top 12, whatever top 16, whatever you want to, whatever it is, and then you're just like, yo, this is still going, and you're just like, yo, so what's the end time? And some teams would rather just be like, yo, like, all right, can we just lose? Maybe not for like obviously the top teams that are just going to go further on, but if you're waiting for groups to end, then now it's like 5 o'clock, say EST, and then you take an hour break in between. Now it's 6, and now when is everything else going to end? And then now you even bring up the topic of your EU players that look at the time that they're ending at.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's all I'm saying.
So I'm totally going to disagree with everything you said.
Of course you are. I'm used to that.
Okay, this is why we're on the show, man. It's for that duality that we have, you know?
I understand.
We thrive off each other.
I understand, man.
But no,
Don't worry.
okay.
One day we're gonna be sitting across each other, and I'm just gonna you're gonna see. I'm gonna get heated. Don't worry.
So
But yeah.
okay, so I'm gonna say right now that I think there are merits to it. Like, there's definitely some tournaments that run way too long, and that there's no reason they run that long. Okay, and I think sometimes people mess up, and you know what? That affects the players. But I think players play an equally important role in this too. And I think players' expectations of things are like through the roof of what's humanly possible, okay? To give an example, because we've run a lot of tournaments, I would argue we ran probably the most efficient tournament in Splatoon 1. We were super time efficient with things, right? And we still had people complain about our time. We've clearly set expectations that it'll end at this time, like we did nightlies, right? We're like, it would end at 1 a.m. We told people it would end at 1 a.m. And people would still complain that it ended at 1 a.m. And we're like, we told you explicitly that it would run till this time. Don't get mad at us. The second thing, too, is the biggest thing I found from players is not that they think the tournament's too long. I think everyone should have an expectation that if a tournament's starting at 1 p.m. Eastern time, it's going to end at 6:30 or 7 if you have more than 60 teams. Without a doubt, it's just always going to be the case, whether it's best of 3, best of 5, best of 7. It doesn't matter because most of the time the delays happen because of the players. And I think the second thing is if you 3-0 in a round, you're going to expect to wait 20 minutes. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And I think people have this perception that tournaments are long because it's the illusion that it's long. You're spending 20 minutes not playing in a game, so you're just sitting around waiting for the next match. So in your head, you're like, man, this tournament is taking forever. When in reality, it's just taking 20 minutes because you KO'd a team in like 3-0.
Okay. Specifically,
over there like, "Rah!"
we're obviously on this topic because of Inkcage, right?
Yeah. But
Yeah.
hold on.
That's a 2-day tournament that we went to 3 a.m. for the people in grand finals.
I
3
said with
a.m.
the exception of Inkcage because we can all understand that it failed on its merits for a multitude of reasons. I'm talking other tournaments that don't have that issue still get flamed for it.
No, they don't. Squidboards doesn't get flamed for anything.
All the
before
time.
that.
All the time.
No.
All the time, without a doubt.
It was brought up.
Walkman, you're
straight to
blind,
food.
man. You should be a
was brought
TO.
All right. But still, that's 106 teams in what, 6 hours? We did
Yeah.
something like that. Exactly. Why did Inkcage need to be 6-7 hours both days?
But we weren't talking about Inkcage. It just brought on the discussion from Inkcage because
Right, but
Kendall
still,
brought it up because he said tournaments take
that's
too
not-
long in general.
That's not a problem. If it's a 1-day tournament and you get the whole thing done in 6 hours, that's an accomplishment. If it's that many teams, that's not a problem. It's the 2-day ones that something needs to change. And then, honestly, I already told you guys this before the podcast. If we're gonna get EU teams all the time in the tops, then we need to start the tournament no later than 12. It should honestly be 12 Eastern. It should be earlier than that.
Well,
And if the PST people don't want to wake up at 9 a.m. for it, then I don't understand how you go to school at 8 a.m.
I mean, typically we haven't really cared about that. I'm going to be completely honest. Like, the way that we run tournaments is, are we free? Can we wake up? And that's our answers. So, I guess to my thing is we run tournaments late night on a Thursday. Like, no one from Europe's going to join those.
That's where you're targeting American teams.
Yeah,
But these big tournaments aren't.
I mean, the answer
So
to
they
that
have
is
to start earlier.
the answer to that is make something that's European friendly. Why is no one making a European friendly tournament?
I mean, that's also true.
All right, but these are the big ones. All the
question. What are the majority of, like, let's put aside like top 8 for a second.
Okay.
The majority of teams come from what? Like, are there just like a ton of like low level?
I don't have the
NA
statistics
teams?
on that.
I
to
don't
be
either.
honest.
I'm just wondering, because that could
That's a
be
good question.
that could be like part of what answers this question as well. Because if like 80% of your teams are NA, which is too high, I think. But if it's something like that, then it's like, well, you know, are we really gonna like want to make? Are we gonna make the time slot for the tournament really bad for like a vast majority of our player base to satisfy 4 teams? Not that it's a bad thing, because you do want to make sure that like your competitive like play is made in a way where the competitive players can play it, but it's something to consider.
But what I'm trying to say is that you're just assuming that everyone's in NA because all we do is have tournaments that are NA based.
No, that's because all the people that make tournaments, InkTV, we're in America. Endgame TV, they're in America.
But then why is there no one in US who does in Europe who does that?
Then why am I in Canada?
You're telling me that no one in Europe is capable of doing it?
Because we did it first and we scared them off. I don't know.
And we're the best. Go America!
Alright, there are the EU friendly things, but the big ones don't attract everybody else.
There are good TOs from Europe though. Like, you got like Burn, like Dragonudo. Like there are people out there, but I don't know. I guess it is just most of the organizations are like really like NA centric.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's just
Wolfenstein has a bigger player base.
Anyways,
So
more
there are
more
two
along
things
that.
I want to. Oh,
No, go
right.
for it, Hitzel. But more about the time in particular, not time slot. There's more about
Right.
timing.
Yeah.
Time
So
efficiency running a tournament.
There are two things that I've been saying for a while that TOs kind of need to like shift the gears. Well, there's two things that I want to see TOs do more. The first is that like when players delay the tournament, DQ their asses.
that's what I was going to say next.
Yeah, like it's been a problem, and it's been a problem because TOs tend to have to be like one of two types of people. They tend to be the types of people that won't DQ anybody and are too nice, or they will DQ people and they're way too fucking mean, like slimy. You know, it's like there typically isn't a good in between where it's like you need to have somebody like to be in charge and to DQ teams that are like holding up the tournaments, but you can't like do stuff that's gonna have everybody complain about how rude you were on like Twitter and all this kind of stuff.
Listen,
and I know that it's not something to really care about that much, but I don't know why the willingness to DQ people also has to be that closely related to like behavior. I just want to see that stop. And the other thing is that there needs to be, especially for bigger tournaments, there needs to be a person on staff whose sole job is, and there are people that have this job, but they have other responsibilities that stops it from working, but their sole job needs to be to go around like Smash GG or whatever website you're using and keep track of where all the sets are and make it so that like when the stream gets done watching a match, this guy is already in the text chat being like, hey, here's the room, I'm in it, join me. We're gonna. I already told him that you're coming in to spectate, and that like this is more for the stream, but that can like cut off delays so much.
We already do that.
Do you do that?
We do that.
Yeah, we do
aggressively.
for sure.
Jordan doesn't actually do like any TOing in a lot of the stuff that we have us involved. He's literally the liaison between stream and TOs, and he goes into the chats and tells people like, hey, your set is coming, you're going to enter, here's the password, here's who you have to add, go add them now, the second this ends, you're joining this lobby, and we always do that. And if we're late, it is nothing to do with us. We completely set it up well beforehand.
All right. Well, Jordan's a god, so
That's
I'm not surprised.
Like we pick out what maps we want to play, and we're like, go do this for us, and then he comes back and he pulls it all for us. So that's...
I mean, I'm just saying, like, the whole thing is if you're gonna say the players and like multiple TOs are gonna say players, you're gonna have to start DQing. Like,
well, I mean,
just get it done.
See, yeah, I can't speak on behalf of other tournaments. I haven't played in them in a while, but like, I mean, I don't know. I was pretty aggressive, Hitzel. Let's be clear.
On Twitter, like,
I literally told people that they were stupid and then DQ'd them. Like, I never got told on Twitter because it wasn't unfair. Like, yeah, maybe I was a little mean, but I wasn't unfair about it. I completely told them why they got DQ'd, and it's clearly stated in the rules, and you're done. And that was it, right? And I also put in the rules that if you talk shit to me, I'd ban you as well. Well, like, you're not allowed to shit talk other players when it was in captain's chat. That was an explicit rule I made so that it wouldn't, like, heat up drama and people start, like, backpacking on each other. You know what I mean? It'd just be like, it's meant for communication. That was more what I was doing. But, like I said, I think people just need a little bit more backbone. Like, I wasn't explicitly mean. Like, I didn't hate the person. I didn't say, I fucking hate you and you're the worst. And, you know, it was just like in the context of that, like, what are you doing? Why are you acting this way? You're DQ'd kind of thing. And I think a lot more people have to do that. I think people need to just be tougher about it. Be more stern. I think you have to act stern. I think that's more what it is. It's you have to act stern, because if you act like everything's super jolly and happy and yeah, that's great, but you're DQ'd, no one's gonna take you seriously, right? Like, you have to kind of have a point where you look like you're serious.
It needs to be to the point where there's not going to be like a big like argument and debate about it. It's just like, hey, this is what happened.
Yeah, like, you're cut and dry. You are the dictator in this situation, and you are going to knock that person out.
Yeah, and like, you're doing these things because it helps everybody. Like, it helps the whole tournament go smoother. Like, it's saving delays for everybody because you DQ'd that one team. So it's like, you're not doing it because you want to be a dictator and you want to like have power over people. You're doing it because like the tournament needs to run smoothly.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. But you have to. I'm saying it takes a certain type of person. Okay, like it does take a certain type of person to be that way. Like, you have to understand that you can't just be friendly all the time, and you have to realize that some people might take that in a bad way, and that is their problem. Like, you know what I mean? If a team gets DQ'd and it's their fault and they're mad at you for it, that is a personal problem for that team that got DQ'd.
Agree.
That's about it. Stop being bitches. That's it.
All right. Boom, you don't even have my Twitter right on the damn thing.
Why? Walkman_0424.
There's no 24.
I might have.
What is it? Walkman 04?
_04, yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'll not change it for you then.
Alright, go on to the next topic.
Walkman was born in 2004.
No.
Anyways, let's go into the big topic here. We brought this up on 2 previous podcasts. I'm sure me and Kendall have talked about this a million times now, but because this now Sendo tweets it out, and apparently we never brought it up before.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about it again because it's a hot topic and everyone wants to talk about it on this.
Sendo tweeted the new dude said.
What?
Remember that meme where like dude said blah blah blah, and then everybody will be talking about. You don't remember the thing on Miiverse?
No.
You don't remember that?
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. All right, whatever. Forget
Anyways, we're going to talk about map bans because it's a hot topic. All the higher end players want to have banned maps because they're saying that aren't working, and they're saying that people can't practice all 60 modes. It makes the game not competitive, etc., etc. It's very divisive. We have Hitzel over here who adamantly is like, you guys are all crazy, and you have a bunch of us over here who are like, this is a good idea, and you kind of have people in the middle. So we're going to bring it back up again and flesh it out. So Kendall, we'll start off with you, man.
Start off with me? I mean, I already saw a ban Murray in the chat, so we're going in the right direction right now. as said, like Z Stars is actually one of the ones that brought it up. If you don't know him, he actually was talking about the last time we were bringing it up about how there were more maps and modes coming in, and that it's almost impossible like getting in practice and trying to like learn every map and mode at the same time. I think that it needs to be looked at. I don't think we need a ban off the bat. If there's a real problem like salt spray, please, like make a quicker decision. But I do think that for better practice and competitive like game types, yes, it would be better if you had less maps and modes. I don't think straight up like banning a map is going to be like you don't need to do it. But I think maybe working on like more of a committee of people coming together, talking about like what maps modes are actually valuable for competitive, not just I don't like Moray, I hate Moray, so I mean that's a different story. But what are your reasons for doing it? If you're talking about like whatever it's main stage, Rainmaker, dude brought it up the last time. There was a game actually I was watching. They were not twinning. They were doing a scrim actually today. I think it was the ethereal scrim. I'm not exactly sure. And literally, they ran it on left, and there was nothing that Olive could do. Nothing. They held it on left. They started shooting the Rainmaker over. That was it. They couldn't stop the push. They couldn't do anything. So I mean, I feel like there has to be a group of people that come together and like probably rate which maps work for each mode and which best fit, in my opinion. And I think that it's a group of people. Maybe you look at like competitive players that like play the game. You look at your TOs and probably your people that are more analytical and can objectively look at each map to come together and talk about what they think they should remove. Don't bring in Turf War, please. I'll leave it at that.
All right, how about you guys?
All right, so I'm not of, I guess, the favor to outright go and ban most maps. Like, all right, one of the suggestions out there is like, all right, you select one mode for each map, like, and then that's the one mode you're gonna see that map be played on. And then it's like, all right, let's say if there's 20 maps and you just pick a mode for each one, you're gonna have 20 game types, and that's what we always play. I'm not really a fan of that. Maybe we could combine that with like some seasonal things, like I was talking about with Hitzel earlier. Just like Sendo's suggestion was like 4 months. That's way too long, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's long.
That's way too long, and you have so many things going on in 4 months.
Balance patches.
Yeah, so that's just way too long. I think at most 2 months, if you're going to do a season like that, maybe even a month. But just in general, if you want people to practice these map modes, which honestly isn't even a big problem to me, but if that's what the community wants, then you have to do it in a way where all the maps will still be there, but not at the same time, kind of thing. Like kind of with how BNS does we're only going to play those maps for 4 weeks, but BNS, that's not going to matter because no one's going to practice for BNS Season 0 if there's no prize pool, honestly. And then if the only way that would happen is if TikTok Tuesdays does the same map pool, and NCL does the same map pool. Everybody has to get on the same page if you're going to be doing this type of thing, and so everybody just needs to come together and do that. But honestly, in my opinion, it's not the biggest problem right now. Like, you're talking about, oh, people need to develop strategies for each map when people don't even understand how to play the game, honestly, in my opinion. It's just like, I see people scrimming completely the wrong way. They don't even know what they're doing. And you want to talk about, I'm losing because there are too many maps in the rotation? No.
I mean, I'll refute some stuff you're saying, but Hitzel, I want to hear what you want to say about it.
Sure. So I'm basically like I'm like infinitely against outright banning anything. I think that the only thing that was ban worthy in Splat 1 was salt spray, but we let it develop to the point where it just was what it was. There's nothing Salt Spray like in Splat 2. You can think Moray sucks. You can think that like Rainmaker on main stage is bad. There's nothing at that level. So there's nothing that is inherently bad enough in Splat 2 to warrant it being banned. There's nothing even close. And so that's one reason, but that's not the main reason. The main reason that I am against banning stuff is because of the effect that it has on the people that play the game. The effect that it has on the community. And I say this like I was staff at MLG for 5 years. I've been involved with a lot of competitive games for a long time, and I've seen what happens when competitive communities try to take a game and make it so what competitive players are playing is not the same as what everybody else is playing. And a few things happen. So basically, a whitelist and a blacklist count as banning to me. I don't care if you say like, oh, we're going to ban these maps because they're not good, or if you want to do like, oh, we're going to pick one map. We're going to pick one mode for each map because these are the best ones to do, or for whatever arbitrary thing. It's all banning because at the end of the day, there's certain stuff that you're allowing in tournaments and certain stuff that you're not allowing in tournaments. So what happens is the first thing that the long-term thing that happens is you have a growing divide between the casual and competitive communities, and it doesn't seem like you're going to at first. But if you take a look at things like Halo, Pokemon, Smash, a lot of smaller games as well, like I could start listing stuff like Murder Miners and like Rainbow Six and like shooters that I was involved with. What ends up happening is once you take a subset of the game and make that competitive and you forget about everything else, the casual community around that sees that as like people kind of being elitist, or like these guys aren't really good because they're not actually good at the game. They're only good at like a few things, and that's all they practice. So if we practice just one map all day, we would be that good too. So you create this kind of like a feeling. And then what also happens is the more intermediate competitive players, like not the top guys, but like the bigger general competitive scene that like you basically don't have any control over, they start to get elitist attitudes too. And that's where you see stuff like if you ever try to go into a Pokemon Twitch chat and just mention Smogon and VGC, everybody's going to get in a giant fight because there are two different ways to play the game and they're exclusive to each other, and the casuals that like one mode are gonna like hate the competitive players that play the other mode, and it's just a disaster. And over time, that divide gets more and more, where it's like this casual versus competitive like divide that is just bad, and it just happens naturally. Even if like the people that are actually doing this stuff, are really nice, everybody else, the masses that you can't control, you fast forward the clock like 2 or 3 years, it's just gonna happen. It always happens. The other thing is that choosing what things to ban gets us to infight. And what I can basically use as evidence for that is just go to all the chat rooms where people have been like go to chat and like go to everywhere and just look at how people discuss what should be banned, or just consider the following. Just say that we're like all of us competitive players, we're all in like a classroom, right? And I give you 2 pieces of paper and I say on one piece of paper, write down whatever you think should be banned, and on the other piece of paper write down what you think other people want to be banned that you really don't want to be banned. And I'm going to count to 3 and we're all going to show each other our list at the same time, and a half hour later like half the people in the room are dead because of all the fighting that's going to happen. And it's no matter what you do, there's always going to be that kind of infighting where and even if like the people that make the decisions don't fight about it, you do this thing where if everything's allowed, everything is equal. Everybody can like everything. Everybody can dislike anything. It doesn't really matter because all that stuff gets treated equally. Nothing changes. Your opinions don't influence what gets played. But once you start a situation where people are making decisions on what gets played and what doesn't, everybody thinks that their opinion needs to have input. Everybody thinks that, oh, my idea, like what I think these maps are good and these maps are bad, I need to influence the decisions of the guys making these decisions, and that's why everything's always fighting. And that was a little bit of a long explanation, but I really wanted to like get that. I just wanted to like really like express that if you're going to ban stuff, it's got to be for really freaking good reason, because you're going to have like a lot of problems with the community at large long term. It just happens.
Just one thing. I mean, we already have a divide with the casual scene as it is. Like,
no one goes on Reddit.
First off, like we already have a divide between like New York's Splatoon land, not Beacon, not Long Island Splat, going to Nintendo World, like there were people that had arguments about aerosprays and like the whole, as I said, like there's so many arguments about it. I mean, you run an academy about how many people think that they can use an ink brush in competitive and for their team comps. So I mean, there's a divide there already. And if like even for your classroom situation, there's always somebody at top that should be able to make those decisions. I'm not saying that it should be EGTV. I'm not saying that it should be InkTV. I'm just saying that it should come from somewhere at one point in time. Even if you do keep the maps, there needs to be some unified front, in my opinion.
Yep.
Okay, so
From somebody up top.
I think there's a healthy balance between both discussions here, and I'm gonna talk about it, okay? Because like I said, we've thought about this a little bit. Regardless of what Walkman thinks,
What do I think?
I still think my reasoning's valid, okay? We started BNS with the idea, not the intent to inherently ban maps, okay? We made it with the intent that we felt like people didn't have focus, and we felt like you needed to be guided that way. And that sounds very like you don't know what you're doing, but it's more like to try and increase people to think about the game differently. Because right now it feels like people think of very baseline strategies to the game. There's very, very few top teams who are like actively thinking about counter weapon picks other than just the comps that make sense. They're not thinking about like more than just where you should be positioned on a map. There should be more strategies, like where you should be at a certain point. How do you engage the Rainmaker when you're in X situation at the map? You know what I mean? People can be more fleshed out, and I think that's how he went about it, was like, let's see if we can push this into a way where people are willing to go an extra step into thinking about the game, which then makes them better at each map as they play. So we decided to go with 7 maps per month, and all modes. So each tournament you play one map. So Rainmaker, TC, Zones, Clan Blitz, right? So you can focus on one mode, play all 7 maps, and then you go through a whole tournament playing it, which means you practice that set as well. So you start to understand more than just like, oh, whoever's the better team and has a decent strategy and kind of works together well wins. Now it can be more about, if they actually have a better strategy, they have a chance to win these games. And I think that's the idea behind it, is we just want teams to practice more and get better. And I don't think anyone's at the exact point to make a super informed decision, like banning out an entire map forever. I just don't think we're at that point yet. And the second thing is that we have too many balance changes and things that keep going on that doesn't warrant a permanent ban. Like, people are going to say like, oh, Port Mac needs to be banned because of Stingrays. It's like, has anyone actually tried strategies to effectively 100% counter Stingrays? Or is it just not working because of the weapon comp you're playing? And the second thing I'd say to that too is, so what about if they nerf Stingrays? Do we then keep TC Port Mac banned because we haven't played it forever? Like, you can't do that in a game that keeps constantly changing its patches and everything on a regular basis. So I think the solution to it is, like we said, a rotation so people can actively practice these modes and get better at them. And also, we don't want to do another thing by hindering us when we play against Japan, right? Like, Japan has their own type of thing. If we start doing a full rotation and banning out maps, then when we go to play against them, we're going to get absolutely destroyed on maps that we've banned out, right? Like, we want to find a balance between them. And I think that's the balance, is just having certain tournaments that do have these specific map and modes so people can really get into the strategy and start thinking more beyond just the basic strategy, going a little bit more advanced than that, but then also leaving it open so that more people can play. And like, our idea is that we may either drop like 3 maps and put 3 maps in the next month, or we might switch out all 7. We haven't fully decided. Like I said, this is new for us. This is something we're taking feedback on from our events and
Can I get
trying to see what
feedback
people
right now?
want. Yeah, well, go for it.
All right. If I'm signing up for BNS, correct? This is what's going to happen. I'm playing Rainmaker this week. I'm going to practice. I'm going to forget about Rainmaker the next week because I got to go on to the next thing. This is going to be Splat Zones or whatever. You're just 1 week of playing Rainmaker is not going to be enough for me to even think about like what is best here.
Well, so the idea,
that's why if you had like, it's instead of each mode each week or something like that. It'd be way more efficient if it was just 20 maps or 20 game types, and that's played the whole month. And that gives me time. All right, I lost this tournament. Let's see what I can do for the next one.
So
what do I fix?
The issue with that,
instead of let me go on to splat zones and forget what I did in Rainmaker.
So the issue with that is overall, it has to do more with a couple of things. The first one is that you're playing 7 maps, right? Like just 7 maps, and our tournament format is best of 7. So if you go to a full 7 maps, you're always playing the same 7 maps, right? The idea is that you're actively practicing these maps and modes, and overall your strategy doesn't change a shit ton depending on whether you're playing TC or Rainmaker or zones. Your position changes a little bit, but overall your positioning on most of these maps will relatively stay the same. So the idea is that you're actually practicing the maps and then tweaking it towards whatever mode you're playing. It's kind of like a compromise between it, because you can't, if you go that focused, right, like that deadline focused, and other tournaments start picking up on that, then you're actively limiting too much of that pool in one shot, and then changing them after every month or every 2 months. It's like you're limiting yourself too much, but keeping it in a way that it's condensed enough that you can actively work on things on a weekly basis while keeping all those maps intact is a good way. And then in the end, when we have a week 5, we put all the modes together.
So, for the record, I don't think that we need a rotation. Like, I definitely do. I'm not okay with banning stuff. A rotation that's done right isn't banning stuff, because you're still playing all the maps and modes. You're just shifting the focus over time to give teams something more narrow to practice. I don't think that's needed. But like, if you were to hold a gun to my head and ask me how to do it, I would do it a little bit differently, because I've thought about it for a little bit. Because this isn't the first time that Sendao has like said stuff like this. Like, I know that this is something that he's been thinking about for a while too. But basically, I think that having 7 maps for the whole month isn't good. I think it's a little bit long, but for Splatoon 2 in particular, we get balance patches every month, and it's going to lead to these situations where, like, on balance patch, Splatoon 2.23 or whatever, we're only going to play these 7 maps, and like the balance changes that are meant for the whole game, like tournaments aren't going to even see those other like 2/3 of the maps in the game or whatever it is, and I don't like that. So what I would suggest is to try to make a system where your goal is to kind of rotate through everything in 1 month. And the way you do that is you take a big pool of maps, and every week you get rid of half of those maps and you keep the other half. So every map is in rotation for 2 weeks, but there's still changes every week. That way you can get through everything. Now, that doesn't quite address the problem of why like Sendao wanted to do this kind of stuff and why some other people want to do this stuff. I have more value for doing I find more value in doing something like that, in the same reason I find value in there being looting map rotations, where you kind of trick teams into practicing better, because it's like, oh, we have to practice this stuff this week. Let's find another team and practice, like, all right, we're going to pick this map and we're going to run this map a bunch of times, and we're going to like try some strategies, and we're going to actually develop skill sets on this one specific thing or the small group of specific things, because we've been told to. Now, in my opinion, that's how you should be scrimming anyway. You should narrow it down to something that you want to practice. Find a team that also wants to practice it. Maybe they want to practice something else, and just grind it out, and you actually learn that way. It's a little bit less fun than going scrim 10 and being like, yeah, we won 7 games, we're awesome. But it helps you.
And
Wait. Can I go on to something Hitzel said real quick?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. All right, with that, like, kind of like the tricking of Ludi into playing those things is that outside of Ludi season, what are you supposed to do? Because the map list comes out the night before. So what if every map you decided, let me practice for that week, is just not there? I think the TOs, there's no reason why you can't at least have a preliminary, no matter what number people like sign up for your tournament. You should already have at least well beyond that amount of maps or map list already created, and that should be released way before night before.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah, even if you have to make more rounds worth of maps than you might need, there's not really that much of a reason to not release map lists.
Yeah.
People prepare for it, especially for majors. It's like You can just have like a caveat saying, hey, here's going to be top 8 or top 12 or top 16 or whatever, and here's going to be pools. If we don't have enough entrants to fill this, we're going to cut off starting here. And if for some reason we get a ton more entrants, we might have to add more. And it's like,
yeah.
I think that's fine.
That's fair. And Hitzel, actually, the whole reason for BNS is similar to what you were saying about replaying maps and grinding them out.
Yeah.
I guess my thing is your faith in humanity is too high and mine is too low. That's the difference. I don't have any faith that anyone is actively determined enough to do it without some form of a tournament actively helping them.
If more people, if a bunch of TOs did your map list thing, like if a bunch of people were like, we're going to like go with the BNS map list or the Ludi map list or whatever. Like I know Jordan's done like weekly tournaments where he just did the Ludi maps.
Yeah.
Tournament. Like if that caught on, that would have that kind of social effect, because if like half the tournaments that are being run are using like this map cycle, then it's like, oh well, I should practice these because
I mean to be fair, if we start getting into an event where it's like I don't know, like maybe a LAN event, like I don't think every tournament should actively just go to a rotation. Everyone starts doing it. I do think that that's a lot of tournaments should start doing it just so that you can force practice out of people, but I don't think it's something where every single tournament needs to follow suit.
Just with this whole situation, I think we may not even need to be ever banning things if honestly we just 2 weeks before create a map list and that's what you're practicing. And because what do you call it, this Platinum Cup map list has been out for I think a month, and he specifically said if this map comes out right before, it will not be played. If this weapon comes out before, it will not be played. That's what he does, whoever crew does Split Championship for Platinum Cup. He does that for all of his tourneys. The map list is way before, and he says he already puts a disclaimer that we're not playing this, or even sometimes he puts a disclaimer, it will replace this map if what do you call it, the new map comes in.
And I don't disagree with that. It would be nice
if smaller tournaments were to also like follow suit on that map list. Like if we did have like a more centralized like competitive Splatoon league where like maybe every month or every like other week or whenever they did one of the big tournaments, and be like, hey, here's our map list, we encourage other TOs to use this map list as well so that we can all be on the same page. Like that would be awesome, as long as you're not like being like too biased in the way that like the maps get chosen.
Yeah, for sure.
Like the way map lists are typically made, like you kind of start out with RNG and you kind of move things around to try to have things more evenly spread out in the tournament. And sometimes if you look at a set and you're like, okay, well, like right now this map and mode is really screwy. Like people aren't really good at it. Like let's say like Splat one, like kind of like Black Belly, Rainmaker or whatever. Like we'll make that game too, so it's like less likely to have that big of an effect on the set. Or like maybe you'll just shift where it is in top 8 where you think like it'll have like less of an impact. Like it's still being played, but you're trying to be a little bit wise about it as opposed to like outright banning it. Like that kind of stuff can happen. But what I wouldn't want to see is like, oh, we have these map rotations and you know it's been 6 months and I haven't seen these 3 maps in rotation, but other maps have been repeated like 2 or 3 times. Like I wouldn't want to see that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, I think the idea would be if you did a rotation, you kind of leave it pretty objective, where it's like you drop these maps and you put the maps that were not there remaining back into the system
to make sure that you go through everything.
And like I said, the whole reason we did on BNS with like just 7 maps and switching it out is because we don't want to be the ones who pick maps and modes and tries to remember all the modes and the maps that we then created. So we figured 7 maps, 4 modes. That's 28. Map mode combinations that you have to actively focus on, but it's only through 7 maps, so you still understand the fundamental of a map at least, and then you go through that through the month. And I think that's a fair starting point, right? Like this is all for us to take feedback, right? Like we're starting off like this, but we're working towards something now. Like we're working towards whatever people feel is the best way that it can be done, right? We just want people to start opening up the discussion of like actively looking at strategy and really focusing down on like their play on specific maps, because we think that's the one thing that's lacking, that you can see that like, a higher team is kind of developing, and I think that it's a good way to kind of jumpstart a little bit of like competition between lower level teams to kind of move up to like that intermediate or higher level at this point by like kind of forcing them to think about the game a little bit more. That's just how I saw it. And like I said,
I mean,
I think the mix of the two, like your point of like adding maps well before a tournament is totally applicable too. Like they're not one or the other. Like if you put map lists before, it doesn't mean you still can't have a tournament that has a map rotation. You know what I mean? It's both. The map rotation helps train you, and then you have the map presets long before that decide it. So let's say after a couple of months, you've played through every single map and mode, so you've kind of prepared for that big tournament that happens, I don't know, in the third month, let's say.
Yeah, it's just, like, in general, I think this whole conversation can just be avoided if map lists weren't completely random. Because that's pretty much what it is right now. But I know, alright, if I was a TO, I'd do the same thing Hitzel said, where, alright, then you move around a little bit here and there, but honestly, I don't think that's the case for all tournaments. I think they just go in completely random.
A lot of them do.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, I don't remember what tournament this was, but it was like, it was a big tournament. It might have been G5, and like grand finals or something like that had like more clam blitz than Splat Zones. Splat Zones was 1 and every other thing was 2. And that's like kind of weird to me that we're playing clam blitz in grand finals twice over the mode that everybody, the general consensus is that it's the most competitive. Why is it that at least 2 times being played in?
I don't think that was G5 because
there was something. It might have been Inkcage.
Yeah, because I was part of the process for picking maps in G5, and Clan Blitz was the least used mode. So basically, you have 4 game modes, and it's a best of 5. One of the game modes needs to be repeated twice. Clan Blitz was never repeated twice, but all the other game modes were. The only time it was repeated twice was in Bracket Reset, but that's when it was a best of 7, so it wasn't being used more than anything else there as well. So it must have been something else. I know it wasn't G5 just because I was part of it. We made sure that there was never a set where Clan Blitz was used more than another mode.
All right, well, that's just
that would whatever that was, like that is screwy.
Yeah, that's at that point is like when you get to the top 12, I think we should be focusing the maps where at least if it's an all mode tourney, we should be focusing on grand finals being that's where you nitpick and try to put at least the more, I guess, things that people obviously practiced, you know, into that grand final set. That's not where you put Rainmaker Starfish.
Yeah, exactly. Luckily, that tends to happen because, like what I said, like the TOs will kind of shift certain stuff around. Like they'll keep overall the general. Nice camera angle, Walkie.
Yeah, sorry. I'm looking for the charger, but it's too far. But just gonna.
Yeah, they'll keep representation of like the maps and modes and stuff, but they'll kind of be wise of where they place it to make sure that like. You know, like the winners finals and losers finals and grand final stuff doesn't come down to like something like really dumb.
All right, Kendall, final thoughts for you?
Final thoughts. Honestly, after hearing Walkie, actually what he said about like getting the maps and modes, obviously at least a month before, if it's possible. I think that's actually a more valuable one. Obviously, this being fair, I still believe in the fact that the discussion needs to happen, and whoever it is. They need to come together and start talking about it. I mean, obviously, going with Hitzel's direction, I don't think anything needs to be banned. I don't think anything's really that bad besides main stage, Rainmaker. But also, I do hate Clan Blitz, but that's a different story. That's more solo. And I think also people take solo into competitive, so that's another thing.
Yeah.
But I think it's a discussion that needs to be brought up more. But I do think being able to review the maps and modes 2 weeks prior to be a major event is huge. That's huge.
Yeah.
So.
I guess...
And wait, one last closing point for me is like with the Olive and Ethereal scrim this morning was they already had the map list, so they planned it out. And it's like, if we're sending our guys over to play Japan, how come we didn't help them out with this already? Why didn't we make a map list for our tournaments that included Platinum Cup's rules? We should have already helped our guys out. That's why they're gonna most likely lose. Is because we should have put in some effort for them as well.
Yeah, I mean that's fair.
Yeah.
I guess my final thought on this is, yeah, I mean, you kind of know already. I'm for the rotating maps. I think after we've kind of had a bunch of teams on a weekly basis come back and really grind out the maps, then we can open a discussion for potentially looking at soft bans, like very soft, but it's not even
very soft.
I'm not 100% sure. Like I said, like there are active discussions for a lot of Rainmaker maps with only one entryway that's in contention, but it's like I said, in the end, I feel like there's a way that you can make a strategy to beat that, and the better team who has the more effective strategy will win in that map too. So, yeah, like I said, we're trying it out, and we'll see where it goes. So, that's about it for me.
Before we jump into the next topic, I just got reminded again, and I recommend it to a lot of teams, like with that scrim with Ethereal or whatever. So what we do when we scrim is we have a top down. I have an extra switch recording that's just the top down camera, like not even the flyover, just top down, and that's also why like some people don't find it exciting to like watch the stream while we're scrimming. But when we go back and do VOD review and we can see all 8 players and everything they do, it's like really awesome. And like for learning and for improving, pretty good. I just want to throw that out there before we go to the next topic, because I almost had a reason to say it like 4 times now. So yeah, there you go.
Okay. Okay. So the next topic, Hits, I'll let you start off because you're the one who brought this up, and I kind of don't really know exactly where you want to go with it, but you seem passionate enough that you want to talk about it. So start it off, and I'll direct it to the people.
Gotcha. So is this the, just for me to double check, is this the thing that I said specifically, or were like certain weapons, certain things that were said?
You wanted to talk about new weapon releases in the meta. That is all you want. That's as clear as you made it to me.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So I think that it's just what is going to start happening soon is if you look at the remaining weapons in the data mine that aren't out yet, a lot of them are the ones that we've known from the beginning are going to be pretty good. And most of the weapons that have been released so far have been like not so hot. And I think that what's going to start happening is there's going to be a bit of a shift in the meta where we're going to start getting good weapons more often that are going to affect the meta. And I think that like we're going to get, as far as Splatoon 2 goes, we're going to get into a little bit more of a wild time, because you're going to have stuff like the Neo Machine coming out, a bunch of other bomb rush weapons that look really good, like the Neo Splash and the Sorel Umbrella. We're going to start having other good blasters. A couple of the good blasters come out, like the Custom Range Blaster and the Rapid Pro Deco. And basically, like if you count up all the weapons that are coming out, there's not that many that look bad. So even if you were to like have like a stretch of Nintendo just releasing bad weapons, or kind of like every other weapon for a while being not that good, I think it's just exciting because we're starting to get to a point where like I think the tier list is going to get shaken up a lot, because once some of these really good weapons start coming out, it's not going to be like, oh, well, you know, it's still kind of like NZAP and Pro and Roller and a couple of these good weapons, and then kind of everything else. Like, you're going to have stuff that gets thrown in there that completely shakes up the tier list, and then other weapons are going to move up because they're good against them. And I just think it's pretty exciting.
How about you guys?
Yeah, well, no, I completely agree with like what Hitz was saying. Is like a lot of these weapons from the data mine, at least, they look really good on paper. Like, I know a lot of top players, they talk about how they want Neo Splash for like splat zones in particular. It's like, because it's pretty much a copy from Splatoon 1's, where they used that. Actually, the top team started using that towards the end of Splatoon 1 on like museum splat zones. That became a main staple, was the Suction Bomb Rush Splash-O-Matic. And then they want another thing like that, yeah. And then it's like a lot of these weapons that we think are good now, I don't even know if they'll be good in the end, because like there are other things out there. Like, what if Squeezer's 100 million times better than Pro, which it probably will be based on the data mines. And that goes back to a lot of what we've been talking about, is like so many of these weapons are just they're not even released yet, so we don't even know what's the best on a lot of these maps too.
Sure. Kendall?
Fair statement. I mean, we're still early on in the game. We have time. I think that I've seen the data mines. If they don't change anything, then obviously, yeah, we're going to get like things that will replace a lot of the weapons that we're using now. I just think it comes with time. That's all I really have to say with it. I think I agree with what Walkie was saying. So, yeah.
All right. I guess we'll go right into viewer questions. So I have a guy named Kent 331601330. He asks, if you had the power to buff or nerf a weapon, main, sub, or special, what would it be? How will you buff it and why?
Wait. Before any of us go, Kendall, I know last time a similar question came up, everybody took your choice. Do you want to go first?
No, you got it. You go.
Right,
wow, don't get mad. Wait, hold on. You can't get mad if someone steals it.
All right. Well, all right.
I know what I want.
My buff weapon will be the dynamo. That is the saddest looking thing in the game to me. It's not even that bad now, but it's not Splatoon 1 dynamo at all. And it's kind of disrespectful to people who put thousands of hours into the game with dynamo, and then you just like destroyed their hopes and dreams in this game. I just wanted to, I guess he asked why as well, right?
Yeah.
Alright, so yeah, I would just want, I mean, how, basically. So, how I would buff it is just bring back the paint. Like, that's all it needs is the paint. It didn't even need that damage buff that it got. I mean, I would keep it still, but that's how I would do it. It just needs more turf coverage. And then I guess a sub-weapon that I want to see buffed. Did he say buff or nerf or just buff?
Buff or nerf.
I don't think any sub-weapon really needs a buff.
I mean, it's main, sub, or special. Like, what do you feel the most strongly about in general as one of them?
Alright, well then it's dynamo completely to me.
Can I change a kit as opposed to like actually changing the weapon itself? Because
Sure.
I do have an idea.
I mean,
so,
it's basically just being creative on what you feel is lacking.
So the carbon deco is supposed to get sprinkler inkjet, and that's really, really bad. And the carbon's already pretty bad. So what I would do for carbon deco instead is give it burst bomb and bubble blower for a couple reasons. The first is there's no burst bomb bubble blower in the data mine or the full game at all. Second, the carbon freaking needs burst bombs to be viable. Like, it really does, especially with like the way that it is in Splat 2. And then third, it would be the only close range weapon in the game with a bubble blower, which would make it unique. Because I think a big problem with a lot of the kits in Splat 2 is there's a lot of overlap. Where, like, for example, in Splat 1, look at Burst Bomb Kraken and Splat Bomb Echo. There was a close range weapon, a mid range weapon, and a long range weapon with both of those kits, basically. And all three of those versions of those weapons would play differently. You know, like the Hydra and the N-Zap weren't going to play the same. Now, it's not necessarily that they were top tier, but there was variety. Whereas, like, you look at, like, Splat 2, and there's a lot of, like, similar weapons with the same kit. Like, Dualies and Mini, not really that different. You know, like, things with the Dual Squelcher and the H3. They're really not that different, you know. Like, so I think that, like, instead of giving bubble blower only to long range weapons, you can give it to like some close range weapons as well. I think that would just be good. The carbon needs it. It would add some variety. I think it's just good overall.
All right, cool. Can I interject here?
Yeah.
So he also said we can nerf weapons. So we can keep nerfing the carbon. We can continually keep nerfing it and not bring it back to Splat 1. In all honesty, if you want, what I've said is, like, I'll say this now: you give carbon splat bombs, give E-liter echolocator. It's the only fair thing. I don't.
Burst bombs or...
No. Yeah, I said, well, if you give carbon burst bombs, give E-liter echolocator. I don't care. Like that. Like, coming from me being an E-liter main from the last game, it's the saddest thing ever. I know some people make it work. I've completely moved on from snipers. But give it. Yeah. See, but how many other people made that work before the burst bomb nerf? Besides, like, power, how many other people made that work?
What?
The like burst Splat 1 or Splat?
Yeah, Splat 1.
Splat 1, I used to play E-liter. I was the main for NSDC
no.
until Nike came, and I was
I'm not talking about before after the nerf. How many people are, like, still spamming it like that?
I mean, people weren't necessarily spamming it, but the fact that you had the burst bombs to actually do something up close.
Before you were literally, like, you didn't even have to play in the main weapon. You could literally just run around, tap shot, throw burst bombs. After, you had to stop. I'm just saying, in all honesty, I wish that they would either just make the time to snipe someone with the E-liter maybe just a little quicker, or like as I said, just keep nerfing Carbon. Don't bring it back. Or if you're gonna give it burst bombs on top of that, just don't bring back Flounder. So I mean, I'm good after that, but I would like to... Huh?
No, you finish.
No,
interject after.
I'm go
all right,
ahead.
Well, all right. So I'm completely in the opposite of like Kendall. Obviously wants to nerf this weapon because it was so good in Splatoon 1. I want every weapon to be as good as it was in Splatoon 1. Give them the best kits possible so that they're all used in some way or fashion.
Oh, that's fair.
Like,
that's fair.
If every weapon got their optimal kit, like this is it goes back to what Hitzel said too, is like all these weapons have the same kit, kind of, but they're not even the most optimal kit. If every long range weapon have the best long range kit, I wouldn't care at all because they can all be used. But they're giving them these weird ones, and that's why it's like when it's what's it called? They gave the Splat Roller and the Sploosh the same kit. That's the best short range kit in the game, and I don't mind that they're both there.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think I want to add one more thing. I don't think I've said this from the beginning. I don't really give a shit about nerfing or buffing a single weapon. I think all specials should be universally nerfed on paint time. I think every single weapon should have 210p to charge a special at minimum.
So when people get wiped, you want spectators to wait a minute till they get their special to push back in like you're supposed to play Splatoon?
Yes! I want you to be punished, dude!
The whole game is over in a minute.
Then don't die! That's your censor, man! Just don't fucking
They would
die.
need to
That's
like
extreme.
kind of change. They would need to change a few things. Like they would need to make like the splat zone timer clicks go slower. Like
So,
timer
I want...
because it's just we're at a point where that kind of thing would happen. Like you would open the game, you would wipe once, and it would be like a ridiculous.
So my
score.
issue with it right now is mostly just because of how specials are presented. Like we said before, in Splatoon 1, you would hold your special until a moment came up that you needed to use it, right? So you would only use like
panic splashes.
Exactly.
And there was also like quick response.
Well,
jump,
or
like,
things like Inkzuka was when there was people who you needed to pick off at a certain point in time. So you would hold it. You'd even hold Echo a lot of the time. So you wouldn't have like 8 specials per game per person, right? In this, nothing is held. The second you get special, you spam it right away, right? So you have 8 Tenon missiles, 5 Ink Storms, fucking a million specials all game long, right? And I think the solution to that is if it's a weapon where you literally don't panic special anything anymore, then you have to create it so that they get charged less frequently, man. Like 6 is so much. 6 to 8 every game is crazy.
Not really. It's like
I wonder what it would have looked like if we had that counter in Splat 1. Like, have you ever got like I've gone back and counted my bubbles as like a Zemi player. Because like that's actually something like I was like, okay, like how often am I getting bubble? Well, I was more like looking for how many times did I share bubble, you know. But like I've gone back and counted, and like Zinc can get a lot of bubbles in Splat 1, and that's a game with quick response.
Full special charge up though.
I didn't run special charge on a lot of it.
Okay.
But I also stayed alive and painted a lot. But I think that the way that specials work in Splat 2 is kind of complicated, and it's pretty fragile partially because of like reasons what like Walkie said, where it's like, oh crap, like if we nerf special charge, then the game's gonna have a lot of slippery slope where like the first like every little instance creates so much objective time that like it's basically gonna feel like team elimination because like you wipe once and the game is over kind of thing. And then but at the same time it's like, oh man, like I feel like the game's getting kind of dumbed down a little bit because so many games just come down to like, you know, everybody press Q to win, and Splat 1 wasn't like that. And then you could also do stuff where like, all right, well let's make it so you're forced to run a lot of special charge or you're forced to run a lot of special power. But that's going to create a problem similar to Splat 1 where quick response stealth jump you just had to run on everything. So unless a weapon was like obscenely cheap to run without it, everything that didn't work with that quick response stealth jump meta just wasn't good. Whereas you'd have the same thing going on where like every weapon that can't just run a ton of special charge and special power just isn't good. You know, just run like a splatter shot with it or, you know, whatever. because it still works without having our abilities that help it. But like everything that needs main saver, all these low tier weapons that kind of need abilities to kind of make themselves work, those are just out of the meta completely now because you have to run special charge and special power, or else you're going to lose the special war. So I don't know. It's really complicated, and I've at the beginning of Splat 2, I kind of had a sour taste in my mouth about the way specials worked, but at this point, I think that it's starting to feel the way that kind of invincibility specials ended up feeling towards the end of Splat 1, where you would basically have your invincibility specials, you'd keep track of your own and your enemies, and you'd make sure that, like, I don't know how to quite say it, like almost like the invincibility specials would like kind of all go off, like they'd like clash, where like you just make sure that like their Kraken didn't get out of control, and you could use your Kraken to like make sure that kind of happened, where it's like the special war is kind of like a tug of war, and then what actually happens is based on the other decisions that happen around that, where specials just kind of like change the timing of things. Splat 2 kind of has like its own kind of version of that, where it's like, okay, we get 2 specials and push with 2 specials, and that kind of happens often enough where like teams kind of push back with those 2 specials. So I don't know. I just don't know if it really needs to be changed anymore.
I think just final point on that is like what Hitzel said, is like it would turn into a lot of just whatever weapon kills more is going to end up being what's the best at that point. There's going to be a lot of like splatter shot type of things where you just get that kill, and then the other team is forced a minute to even try to get back in. Or if they don't, they're going to just die right away. And it's just, especially with Splatoon in general, with the ink being a thing, like ink coverage, there's no way you're supposed to get in just on 1v1 situations. You're going to lose if the other team has more map than you. That's technically what's supposed to happen in that situation.
Something else to note is that the way area control specials in Splat 2, I think we actually said this on like an InkTV podcast before Splat 2 came out, but basically like compared to Splat 1 where you had like a lot of slang specials that were good, in Splat 2 you have a lot of area control specials that are good. Area control specials tend to result in the fight happening closer to the center of the map when all things are said and done, because if you use slang specials against the team that's trying to defend, you just kill them all and keep moving. Right, it like keeps momentum going. Whereas like area control specials, like it stops the enemy from being in that area, and then once it clears, you can kind of move up again. If you're using that to get into the middle of the map, if you push up into the middle of the map, now everybody's in the middle of the map. Whereas like if you're trying to use that into the opponent's base, you can push them back a little bit, but because of the way the maps are kind of designed, you have to kind of fall back from their base after that. So I do feel like that specials do kind of like, they kind of keep things in. Those area control specials kind of keep things in check, where like it kind of forces this situation to eventually be a neutral situation. But, and I think that's a good thing.
All right, so we're gonna go on to I'd say 3 more quick questions here, and then we're gonna close out the show because we've been talking for a long time. So I have 2 for Walkman and then 1 last one for Hitzel. So the first one from Walkman is actually from Z Stars. Who've always asked the question, man. He says, what factors do you think are important for creating content, written or video, which appeals to a broad audience?
All right, well, first off, you want your thing to be interesting. And by interesting, I don't mean give all the facts, because no one wants to hear facts. They want to hear you. They want to hear an opinion. They want to see pictures. They want to see graphics, and that goes for both video and written. It's like, I don't want to like really hate on anyone on stream, but I've seen like guides that were really, really boring, and I did not watch it. And then it was really informative. I forced myself just like to kind of watch it, but I didn't want to watch at all. And then I watched the Squid Kids video. Like it was posted like the other day. It had music. She was upbeat. She was whatever. It was all things I already knew, but I finished the damn video because it was interesting and she did it right. And it's just, if you're going to create content, it needs to have more than just facts and data. It needs to have graphics, music, everything like that.
Okay.
That's that question.
And
I agree.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I think we all kind of agree on it. It was just, you know, Walkman writes stuff for the website. He basically writes most of the stuff for the website. So
yeah, give me another writer, please. You're killing me.
We're getting some.
Also controls the weapons.
let's see here. Let me check. I feel like I just had one for you, but for some reason I can't seem to find it. Give me a moment here.
I know there was one directed specifically at.
Well, well, okay, I'll just go to yours, Hitzel, and then we'll do one more. So, Hitzel,
Okay.
what happened to Coffee with Hitzel?
Oh, was that the...
That's the fucking question.
Oh, was that the question? Oh, okay. I saw something about, like, why do you throw so many bombs? I thought that was it.
Well,
So
I
what
mean, I
happened to
guess
Coffee
if you
with
want,
Hitzel?
why do you throw so many bombs? But where's Coffee with Hitzel?
So I got a new job, and I moved into a new place, and it's been really hard to find time to do that stuff in the morning. It was really hard for me to, like, play and stream at all for a little bit, like, during, like, the whole moving process. And I'm more kind of settled in now, and I've been sort of squeezing enough time that I think I can do it in the mornings now. So I ordered a new webcam actually this month, and I've been working on a new layout, and I want to kind of bring it back because I miss it too, and it'll give me a reason to get mad at solo queue again. But yeah, it basically went away because I got a new job and moved into a new place, and just real life just stopped me from being able to do that, because it's like I'd always have things to do in the morning, in addition to just getting up and going to work at an earlier time than I had to before. Because when I was doing Coffee with Hitzel, usually, like, the job I had at my school, I didn't have to be there until like 10, so I had all the time in the world to just get up and stream and all that kind of stuff. But like now I have to, like, be there at 8, so it's harder. But soon TM. And I guess for the bomb question, so basically in Splat 1, the reason I picked Splattershot in the first place was because it kind of felt like Halo 2, which was something I was familiar with, where in Halo 2, the way grenades blow up is when the grenade hits something, it just blows up a second later. So if you kind of like skip it across the floor, like, like skipping like a rock across a lake, it'll bounce off the floor and then explode in midair. So you try to get the grenade to blow up right in someone's face, and then finish them off with a headshot, and that was like a big part of Halo 2. Like, being able to bank your grenades around and finish people was a big deal. Splattershot kind of felt the same way, where I could throw a burst bomb at somebody and then one-shot them. It just kind of slowly over time, I just felt like bomb range was a good idea, and added that on. And next thing I know, I'm just practicing throwing bombs long distance and getting really good at it. And I just kind of slowly adopted it to my play style. Typically in other games, I'm more aggressive than I was in Splatoon 1. It's just I kind of fell in love with Splattershot and how it played, and that kind of just molded the way I kind of played Splatoon from then on.
All right. And I guess one last question here. This is from Nathan. Everyone knows T.O. Nathan. He says, what will TOs do about making lag rules that actually work, if none at all? I know I don't use any, but just curious. Also, when will we see more media coverage, i.e. articles, talking about newer teams on the rise? Best I can do is provide a tournament for them. I guess that's more directed towards Mockman, the second part.
Do you want me to answer that first?
Yeah, go for it.
I write a lot for the website already. When Spoon gets me another writer who has no life, they can do that. And then, I mean, technically we have, what do you call it? There's going to be articles about Young Inks that's coming up, I believe, already on our schedule that we've laid out for our articles, so that should be around. And also, I guess, is he asking about like more articles like the competitive guide I wrote for new players? Is that what he's talking about?
I don't know. I think he just means new teams, like
new teams,
coming teams. Like, we did interviews for like G5 and stuff.
Well, that's going to happen with Young Ink if that's the answer. So
yeah.
And then the first part of the question was, again, what?
What
lag rules, right?
What should TOs do about lag rules, if actually work, if none at all? I don't use any, but just curious what you guys think.
Unless the guy's literally skipping across the map, that's the only lag rule that I care about. Then he's DQ'd, the other team won that game, and that's it. Unless he's like literally teleporting, then that's it.
Yeah.
Splatoon the Switch is not good hardware anyway. It's not, a lot of the times it's not the player's fault, so it's just latency a lot of the time where people complain. The lag is when you see that guy literally who took the Rainmaker from one side and suddenly he's in your goal or something.
Yeah.
That's the lag, and that's the only time, if there's video evidence and everybody's crying about it, that it should even matter.
Yeah, well, like I said, I don't think there should be any lag rules. We've already went over it. There's nothing effective enough to do it. We brought it up last time, so I'm not going to go over it too much. But Kendall, we talked about potentially having some form of a consistent system in place to do it. And things like weeklies are a good way. TikTok Tuesdays, BNS can somehow find a way to potentially do that. But in terms of a general aspect, there shouldn't be any inherent lag rules on the actual tournament because it just impedes on time way too much.
Yeah, there was a period in Splatoon's history where we tried
speed test everything.
Test everything, keep track of lag complaints so that like we can like target players and like temporarily ban them if like they're too laggy and stuff. And in the long run, it's either gonna hold up all your tournaments while everybody like accuses people of lag, or it's going to turn into witch hunts where everybody like just wants to like get people banned. We're going to accuse this guy of lag, and all my friends are going to do it too. Like, it's just it didn't work.
That's what we said. Like we just reiterating from last week, basically saying if it's that like outrageous, like honestly, I feel like it's just something that should be looked at from like the TO, from the time to time thing that's not brought up to people. Somebody brought it in. That's really it. Look for it for the next time. If it doesn't change after a while, maybe make an action. But I know it's a lot, and it causes witch hunts, and it's just something that needs to be revisited if these are going to be actually like serious tournaments where people are laggy the whole entire time. So,
all right, that wraps up the show, guys. Plug your shit and say goodbye, guys.
Okay, I'm Walkman_04, not 0424 on Twitter. And that's pretty much all I have. Twitter, and then InkTV.media. Obviously, I write the articles for that. And also, shout outs to Arawanimal just being announced that it's releasing. So,
yo, dope.
Nice.
So now we have 64 maps to ban.
All right, Hitzel, plug your stuff.
Yeah, I'm Hitzel89 on Twitter. If you go there, you'll also find my Twitch and YouTube. I stream a lot. I stream scrims if you want to like see us learn and like tournaments. And I also, like I said, Coffee with Hitzel's coming back, and that kind of stuff gets uploaded to YouTube. And that's basically where I try to spend the morning like playing solo queue, talking to people, and just trying to teach everybody everything and answer any questions that everybody has. And I like doing that. So if you're looking to learn, I like to try or at least throw you in the right direction. So
all right, Kendall.
Yep. Well, my Twitter is that_guy_Negus. Also, I do stream. My stream is my_Negus. I stream from 6 to 8 a.m. Depending if Clan Blitz is in the rotation, I will not play it and I will not be on. I will be asleep. But yeah, come through, watch. Majority of the time, I'm just chilling. Usually raging, yelling, screaming, sending people to the Shadow Realm, which is me blocking them. But on top of that, it's a lot of fun. Also, go to Beacon.
Beacon.
Go to Beacon.
Yeah, don't worry. I'm going to play a Beacon advertisement after this for you.
Also, InkTV.media will have a Beacon thing up soon, like a promo, so check that out.
Yeah, go check out our website where we promote Beacon because we love Kendall and Walkman. Also, I'll promote
and Hitzel there.
I'll promote a promo for it after this, along with BNS. So for me, guys, Cryptic Spoon. But what I want you to actually look at is InkTV Splat, the website, InkTV.media, the website, InkTV Splat, the Twitter, and I need you guys to sign up for BNS Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern next week. That is the 8th at 8 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be awesome. We're bringing all the commentary back. We're changing our overlays. It's going to be really hype, guys.
Is it the commentary or is it the commentary?
It's 2 to 5 people on a cast and couch, just having a good time. Okay. I'll be fair. It's not R-rated like what we used to do, and we're not just ragging on players. It's a little bit more PG than that, but definitely still.
It's a more sophisticated ragging on players.
Yeah, we'll still call you out on bad plays, but we won't tell you you're bad. And it's just generally like good fun. Just good fun for everyone. Family friendly, wholesome fun. So.
With you?
Yeah, man.
Wow.
Think something similar to a podcast, but in a commentating a game.
Yeah.
So you're gonna call everybody a bunch of little bitches. All right, cool.
If I didn't get my point across talking enough today, I'll get it off in BNS. So
Yeah, you see a play, and this is why this weapon should be nerfed. No, but yeah,
Crash.
it'll be pretty good. People who remember Splatoon 1 remember BNS fondly because of a lot of those things. So yeah,
They were good.
we're trying to recreate it, but bring it back in a way that it's more appealing to everyone. So yep, have a good day, everyone, or a good night, and see you later.